not know me, my name is Ronnie. I am a donor egg mom in waiting, which means that I was told by my doctor that in order to have a baby, the best chance was to use donor eggs. And so that's what I did. I went on a mission to look for women of color, just trying to get as much advice as I can. And then I saw women on YouTube, I saw women on Facebook, I saw women on Instagram, and I created a space about in 2019 to help women kind of navigate it, to let them know that they're not alone. We see women all the time from other groups. They get tagged because their doctor told them that information. And what a lot of times a lot of people will tell them is, I had my baby naturally or whatever. And that is great for a lot of people, but there are some people who don't get the opportunity to get that. And so that's what this space is for. So without further ado, I want to introduce Thomika. She ended up having her daughter, beautiful daughter, via embryo donation. So she went through 13 years of infertility, and she is here to talk to us. So start wherever you would like to start.
Okay, so when me and my husband were together, we did IVF first. Well, first we did 2 rounds of IUI. That didn't work because the doctor said that we only have 1% chance of conceiving, and that was between both of us because he had low male factor, and then I had PCOS, and so that basically both of us were combining us together didn't really work. It wasn't really doing anything. We didn't want to do mal sperm. We didn't want to do that. We didn't want to do eggs. So we just did IVF. And that was the hardest thing I ever had to go through. And then we ended up with 3 embryos after I had retrieved 46 eggs from my retrieval. And then we ended up with 15 eggs, and then it went down to 3 embryos. And then we put it into 2 embryos, and then we got pregnant, and then I had a miscarriage. And then I had 1 left over. We tried that one, and it didn't work. So we was left with nothing after that. And then so we waited a while. We did foster care, and then foster care wasn't right for us. So one of my friends actually started us on this journey of embryo adoption because she asked me if we wanted her embryos, her leftover embryos, but she didn't want to be open, so that was like kind of hard for us. So we decided not to go with her embryos, and then I went down this rabbit hole of Facebook groups that have tons and tons and thousands of Facebook groups that have donor conception, and I stayed on the track of embryo adoption because I just thought that was the easiest and cheapest way of going through it instead of doing IVF again. After we stayed on the track of embryo adoption, I went through three different matches, and they didn't pan out. We were so close to the point where we was getting all our paperwork done, and then they decided they didn't want to do it anymore.
And I've heard stories about that. I think we actually have a woman in the chat right in the group right now. She's actually going through that, where she met one family, they weren't ready, and she was just talking about the heartbreak of you know, and
Knowing you
she actually made a post and said, if you're not ready, don't
yeah,
reach out.
don't reach out. I had one lady that was ready, but she was trying to decide if she was gonna do a retrieval herself and try to give me the embryos. I'm like, you want to do it when you're done, not when you're in the midst of your journey. And then she already had a baby through her cycle, and she was holding on to embryos, and then she said she wanted to give them to her cousin. You have to decide. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to give them to this person, because you don't know what they're going through.
Exactly. And, we strongly encourage, families who do want to donate their embryos to, you know, understand to wait when they are totally done completing their family because, if you're not quite sure, what you want to do, it doesn't make any sense to have other parties involved when it's already an emotional toll on you
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah.
So, talk to us about how you finally were able to find your family.
Okay, so like I mentioned before, that the Facebook groups that I was on, I had put like a post about me and my husband and about our story and our journey and stuff. And then this lady just messaged me and was like, "Do you want? I have leftover embryos. Would you like them and go for a transfer?" And she was already done with her cycle. She already has a daughter in California, and so she decided she was already done. She said she was not doing it anymore. She was already past 40, so she was like, "I'm done." And so she gave them to us. We signed our contract. Our contract was the easiest part. We just used the open contract. We didn't have to have like a lawyer involved. We just got it notarized. And CNY, I used CNY Fertility Center, so they accepted it. And we just paid the fee for them to fly across the United States to New York. And we had two embryos that she gave us. And she transferred over the signage for us to say we could keep them, and then like if God forbid anything to happen to me, they will go back to her or something like that. But other than that, they were straight. It was the easiest thing I ever had to go through. Like all we had to do was just sign papers.
And I know you said you used CNY. We've had people in the past use CNY. It was, because of the affordability of CNY.
Yeah.
How much did it ended up total costing you to do the transfer, like the contract and everything? How much did that cost?
The the transfer and everything is about 2,000. But when I started my this transfer, I was working through Amazon, and that's how it got covered.
Okay.
So me working through Amazon, that's what did this whole thing. It was a blessing because if I didn't know about Amazon and their fertility coverage, I this wouldn't have been possible.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and we definitely encourage our members to seek employers that cover it. My employer covers it. There's several employers that do cover it, even if it's something where you have to work, possibly temporarily or, then it's almost like worth it in the end because you save a lot of money when you have employers that cover it. Starbucks is one of them that a lot of people use they don't cover donor eggs, but they definitely will cover your embryo transfer. But there's several companies part time. You can work at Target. You can even
Yeah.
work at Walmart um, and get benefits that cover IVF. So a lot of companies now are making the movement and understanding that this is a need, and they're making it a part of their package. So infertility hits everyone, and what I say is usually when I see a company that offers it, it's like, okay, well, somebody higher up, a CEO or something, or an executive is going through it, and so they get the coverage for them, but it
Mhm.
ultimately helps every employee as well. And you said that you had an open contract with your donor, so that means, like, how
Yeah.
does that work?
So basically, like we're just like Facebook friends. So
Okay.
we share pictures, we share likes, and we just tell each other like, oh, like her daughter's like gone to school, so she'll be like, oh, she did this with dance classes or karate. So we just share pictures, and one day we're gonna meet when they're a little older. But she knows about her sister and Silver. She will too. So
Awesome. And how old is your daughter?
she's 7 months.
She's 7 months. And how was, because I know you said that you did IUI that didn't go through, and then what happened with the embryos that were your own in your egg retrieval?
Well, the embryos, I transferred two of them, and then I had a miscarriage. And
Okay.
then the last one, it didn't. It failed. It was a failed
Failed.
transfer.
Okay. So at this point, you've done two cycles of IUI, two transfers. How are your feelings going into with these? Because you got two donor embryos. So do you,
Yeah. So I had a total of four transfers, and I had one miscarriage.
okay. And how are your feelings about going into the donor embryo transfer?
Oh, I was a nervous wreck. Like, to the point where I was just imagining that I had an extra embryo in there, and I only had the one, and I'm like, no, there's one more, and they're trying to tell me no, it's only one. I'm like, okay, I could do this.
What would you say would be the now are your donor embryos, are they biracially aligned with you?
No,
No. So how are your feelings about raising someone who is not culturally based as you?
I look at it as that I birthed her, I grew her, so technically she's like mine. Like, that's how I feel sometimes. Like, when people look at us and they be like, oh, because she's Caucasian and she doesn't look like me, but she is mine. You know what I mean? Like, we come in all shades of color. So my grandmama always tells me, you never know what she'll look like. She'll come out because my grandmama was white in passing. So you never know what your kids are gonna look like. So you never know.
And I think that's like something important that we need to talk about because of the disparity when it comes to looking for donor, especially donor embryos for people that look like you. It is
Hmm.
very, very
That
difficult. We
was
are very, very closely tied to, not wanting to donate for various amount of reasons, and that's okay. But, when you're looking and asking for people, it's very, very hard. How many truly couples that were of color were you able to even find?
there was two, because the one lady, she had already had kids, and then another lady, and then my friend. So that makes two.
Okay. And before you, I'm sure you had a talk, but how did you prepare yourself about how people would react to the fact that your daughter doesn't
Look
look
like,
like
yeah,
you? Yeah.
yeah. Um, I was fine with it. My husband, he had like the hardest time with the realization that she's not going to be African American, but he wanted to go and continued it. But we're separated right now. But um, he had the hardest time with visually picturing that we will have a white child.
And when you finally discovered, like, I want the feeling, because I know everyone is, guarded, when you've gone through this so much, is what were your feelings when you found out, like, I'm gonna bring this baby home?
As soon as I had before I even had my transfer, I was like, you know what? I When we signed the contracts, I already knew that I was okay with it. I wouldn't accept something if I wasn't okay with it. You know what I mean? Like, some people were like, "Oh, I can't do that. It doesn't look like, it's not going to look like me. I can't do that." But I did it because I know that God had a purpose, He had a reason, and to shed light on this for somebody else to say, okay, it's all right. We come in all shades of colors. Because my grandmama, she keeps telling me she still tells me now. She's like, just tell him you're the babysitter. And then, but I just feel like I just love her so much that that's all that matters.
And I think that's like, you know, you can't help but love something that you grew.
Yeah.
So let's talk about when she was born.
Oh
Talk
my
about
goodness.
like your feelings about when she was born.
I had a whole playlist in the OR. So I played all my baby songs that I had like a dream that because I wanted a water birth but I couldn't. I had to have a C-section because I had a myomectomy done. I had my fibroids out. I had 6 fibroids, so I had to get those removed. And when they did the C-section, they had played music on the loudspeaker for me. Um, but it was a beautiful birth. I cried and everything. It was just a beautiful thing. My cousin was there. She was there to, and it was my doula, and she cut the cord. Um, and my doctor was there. My whole team was there. And then I had end up getting COVID. Um, and then I had to stay in the hospital for like 2 weeks because of the COVID. But other than that, she had COVID too. She was exposed as having COVID. But I think it's because the doctor said it could have been because when I came in, I already had it, and she was already exposed to it, so she was born with it. But she
Okay.
had yellow jaundice when she was born, and she weighed 7'9" and 21 inches long. Yeah, she was a big girl.
If you guys are just joining us, I have Tamika here. She actually had her daughter via embryo donation. And what that just means is she was donated embryos from, were they a couple or is she just a single mom by choice?
Say that again.
Was she is it a couple or single mom by choice?
She was a single mom by choice.
So single mom by choice, she had embryos left over and she donated to her. Now her embryo daughter, donated daughter, um, she is not melanated. She is Caucasian, and we're talking about just a thing of it not being easy to find embryos of color, and that we have several women. If you guys know Sadie, she has a
Yeah.
YouTube channel. She has twin daughters who are Hispanic and white. We have some ladies in our Facebook group as well who also were donated embryos that are um, non-melanated. So it typically happens a lot because most of the time they are the ones who are willing to donate their embryos. And so, you just have to make the choice of, are you prepared to raise someone who is not culturally based as you? We talk about it all the time with egg donors. A lot of us don't have, full African American donors. I don't have a full African American donors, even though y'all know my story. I've been talking about I have two. Neither one of them are full African American. So they're both biracial. So, you go through that issues of, are you okay with that? So now that she's here, she's 7 months years old. How is the bond? I think that's what everybody wants to know. Because especially with this added layer of her not looking like you, which again, if you had an egg donor or whatever, she wouldn't look like you. But how is the bond between you two?
Oh, it's unbreakable. I love her so much. This is my little stinky mama. Sleeping right now. There she is.
And can't nobody tell you that little one that's not your mom, that you are not her mother.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's like a beautiful thing. I've been wanting this for 13 years. I tried my darnest to figure it out, and God knew His promise. So it took a long time, but hey, I got there.
Amen, amen, amen. We want to welcome any questions in the chat. I know that some of you guys have asked some, the preparation of raising a child that does not, especially, um, does not look like you. You're gonna cry. I mean, I think it's always a beautiful story. What I always say at the end of everything I say, there's so many different paths, but the destination is the same.
Mhm.
No matter what the avenue or the route is, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to go get your baby.
Baby. Mhm.
And
And the crazy thing about it is, she was the last one. She was my 6 day embryo, so she was my last embryo.
but the lady donated you too, right?
Yep.
So and then one of those, the first one failed.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that it even makes it even more like nerve wracking. You're on your last one. I want you to talk about because the trend we've had with the other ones, and I don't know if it's the same one, but when you do all these embryo transfers and all this kind of stuff, everybody has the socks and everybody has um, the rituals and everything. On that last transfer, did you do any of that stuff, or you just like, look?
Look, I went in there. I was like, you know what? Hey, if it's gonna pan out, it's gonna pan out. I didn't even do the pineapple core. I didn't even do the acupuncture. I didn't do the socks on your feet. I didn't do none of that. The pomegranate. Oh, I did the pomegranate juice. I did that though, because I like pomegranate juice. But I did that.
Okay. And, yeah, I think Shannon said the same thing. I think that who else? Uh, we all, the people who were on that last game, and they said, you know what? I'm not doing any of that. I'm just gonna go. Someone said, if you don't mind sharing what issues, you think the desire that you had to do donor embryo, and how was that with your marriage about you guys making that decision together?
It was hard, but we made the decision to do it together. But we had other issues, so that's why we separated.
Okay. And I mean, who was it that I think Keisha even said in her interview, she said, if she couldn't use her DNA, neither one of them could use their DNA. And then she kind of just, let that go. So, I mean, some couples do say, like, listen, we're not going to, be biased and use each other's DNA. We're just going to just take somebody, adopt, and just say, it's basically adoption is what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's a little
Hmm.
bit cheaper.
Yeah, a little cheaper.
It's just a little bit cheaper, because adoption can cost a lot. So when people are telling you like you could have just adopted, well, adoption can cost anywhere between 50K to 100K.
Hmm.
Whereas this cost her, what she said was around 2K.
Yeah.
Um, and then insurance picked up a good chunk of that too. So
Hmm.
if you're able to find embryos, if and do it that way, you can make it whatever you wanted to do it. As you heard her say, she has a very open donation. They're friends on Facebook, and so they are able to see each other's children and swap things like that. Does
Hmm.
your daughter look like
Oh yes,
she does?
they resemble each other. She sent me baby pictures of her, and we're like, yeah, she kind of looks like, but she's her own little person, but she kind of looks like her when she was little.
That's awesome. I want to know, how do you plan on, or if you plan on, I think in your situation, you're gonna have to say something, but how do you plan on talking to her, or when do you want to decide? Have you decided about talking to her about her story?
We talk about it all the time, so it's like a open communication thing type thing. Um, like our whole family knows about it, so it's like it's not like it's a secret or anything. Um, I mean, she'll look at me and be like, "Mom, why are you brown and I'm white?" And she'll understand where she came from and where's her origin and stuff. But I was gonna do like a shadow book, a scrapbook, so she can look through like pictures and know what's what.
That's amazing. That's amazing. If you guys are just joining us, this is Tamika. She had our daughter via embryo donation. And what that means is when a couple or an individual is done, they donated the remaining of their embryos. And sometimes you have different choices. So some people keep their embryos in storage and they just pay the fee, or what I like to call is a daycare bill.
Mhm.
The next option they can do is they can discard the embryos that are left, meaning that they don't want anybody to use them, and their clinic will properly dispose of them. The third option is they can donate them back to the clinic and they can use them for science purposes, meaning that an embryologist, when they do classes and stuff, they will actually work on actual embryos, and so that they're not messing up or manipulating the real deal. So they can do that, or they can do what they, in this case for Thomika, is they donated them to a couple struggling through infertility. What advice would you give someone seeking embryo donation?
Hold on, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, that's right there. My phone's about to die.
Okay. And these are like really, baby, how are you doing? These are really good questions too, y'all. Because I mean,
Okay, there we go. Say that again. I'm sorry.
no problem. So, what advice would you give someone seeking embryo donation? Like, are there any like red flags or how to find a donor family? How would you, what would you say to someone if they were on this journey of trying to find embryos?
I tried. Well, before I even did the Facebook groups, I tried NFRA, and like we didn't get nowhere with that website. But the contract was that's the only thing that we used. And for somebody going through this type of journey, like it's like almost online dating, and you have to like pan out the ones that are good and which ones are. You just have like to have like a relationship with the person. If you don't have a relationship, like communication, it's not going to work. Because like some people want to be just semi open, some want to be semi close, all the way closed, or half in, 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out the door. It all depends on their type of relationship you want.
I agree. And I'd say with this, it can change. So you may have it where they're like, they want to know everything. And then the baby
Yeah.
gets here and then they like, they don't want to know anything. I think
Yep.
that we have to also understand that these are feelings involved. And so there may be things that come up that they did not realize that they're not comfortable with anymore. So I think with this, since we're just learning about these different ways, is you just kind of take it what it is. You can have something in place, but gauge how the people are feeling. It sounds like you have a really good relationship with your donor family, and
Hmm.
that's what ultimately a lot of people want. So I
Yeah.
get people always want to know stares. Do you get stares in public? People questioning you being the mom. Do you
Oh
get those
yes.
things
I
all the
was in,
time?
yeah, I was in Target. Somebody asked me if I was her mom. I said, "Yep, she came out of me. I'm her mama." But usually, just people just stop just to talk to her and look at her, be like, "Oh my goodness, she's so cute," and they just like this talk. She's a baby. That's all they see.
So how do you feel about that? Does it trigger you or anything?
At first, the first time it did, when the lady was like, "Is she yours?" I never had anybody ask me that. I'm like, "Yeah, she's mine," and it's hard, but at the same time, I understand like people look at it as in the different race. That's why people ask those questions.
And what you guys have to also realize is you could get these same questions and it could be your own baby.
Yeah.
I talk about myself just being late and I'm like one of the lightest people in my family. And
Yeah.
I remember like sometimes they would say this, she must look like her dad, when I was with my mom, or they see my dad and they'd be like, she must look like her mom, trying to say like this child don't look like you. So, and I know that these are my parents, but you could face these things even if the child is yours because, they're not required to look like you. Um, There's someone in the audience who has a biracial child, and I'm sure he gets it all the time because he's darker skinned. Like, is this your child? You know, and we know for sure that's his child. So it's gonna happen either way. Um, Someone said, "Are you teaching her ASL, and has she started signing it?"
She hasn't started signing, but she knows she loves Miss Rachel, so we watch Miss Rachel, and she does sign language on Miss Rachel. But I teach her like baby signs, but as she gets older, she's gonna learn more sign language.
And you know ASL because you just want you know have somebody family member or something.
No, my husband, he's hard of hearing.
Okay,
And when we met in school, he taught me, and I went to the school that had people with disabilities, and that's how I learned how to shine. Plus, I'm hard of hearing myself too.
that's amazing. That's amazing. I agree. I think it's rude of people ask if that's your child. It's not any of their business to ask
Yeah.
that, but they will. I mean, people just don't have
I'm gonna just start telling people like my grandma said, I'm the babysitter.
any. And then what they're gonna say? They're gonna be look like, oh, like yeah,
Uh,
it's my baby.
yeah,
Sometimes you just have to,
just give them that shock, like, hey, yeah, that's my.
right,
What are you talking about?
right. You want
And
to
then
ask? Here it is.
they were like, well, how come she looks? Why you gotta know all that?
Well, if you guys don't have any more questions for Thomika, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to us and share your journey. I think that, you know, when I started this platform, I told Keisha when I started this, I thought we were gonna have about 4 interviews, and then I was like gonna just well, that was it. That's a good series. And it ended up is now growing into something. I was supposed to have someone on here. She I couldn't get in touch with her. And I made a post saying, hey, I need somebody to come in on Monday. And Thomika, actually I got about 4 or 5 people who said they want to do it, but Thomika was the first one to say, like, hey, I'll do it.
That's
And
that's because Shannon kept poking me and poking me. Hey, Tamika. Hey, you need to do this interview. I see it done. Love you, girl.
it takes a lot. And Keisha, she said you were a reason she followed your journey a lot. And she asked me, she said, did she tell you she was gonna do it? And I said, I don't know. Shannon messaged me, and that's how it was. She's like, because I asked her, she told me no. And that's when I told her, I said, you know, honestly, I thought that this journey was gonna end with like 4 or 5 people, and then I was gonna be like, well, we had a good run, y'all, but I am so happy that I have created something or a space where you guys feel comfortable to share your story because no matter what, you will change someone's life. Someone who was thinking about making a decision or faced with this, now they have the tools properly to say, Thomika has her child and she is beautiful.
Thank you.
And I mean, as you can tell, she is just happy and content and she don't know.
Hmm.
She does not know. Um,
Also, I had postpartum with her as well.
and
Um,
how was that?
that was horrible. I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. So her first 2 weeks, I was in the hospital with her. I had a post manic episode, and they diagnosed me with both bipolar.
Oh wow.
So, but before that, when I was in New York, I had depression, and I think it was because of all the transfers and all the stress and everything. Um, I had an episode in New York, and then they said that I'm gonna have postpartum. They already called it out when I was there, and they said that because of all the medication that I was on was factoring me having multiple episodes.
Oh wow. And how are you navigating that now?
I have a I was doing telehealth, but I have a medication management person that manages all my medication. So I'm doing good. I take it day by day. That's all I can do.
When you've gone through so many things like this, I mean, I think that's really healthy of you to talk about because, you know, when you're on this journey and for so long, and then like to become a mother finally and dealing with so many emotions, you think like, I asked for this, I asked to do all of this, and now you're going through depression, you're going through these things, and you're like, did I make a mistake? And I'm so happy that you are getting the help that you need, and know that what you're going through is normal. You mentioned that you were having some issues with your marriage, so that to deal on top of that, also being a new mom, so now you're a single mom,
Mhm.
essentially, even if he's involved, you're
Yeah.
still doing a lot of the things by yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot to deal with on top of, child, I gotta wake up and do stuff myself, and take care of myself. That's really hard. And so I'm glad that you definitely touched on that because we need to know that we don't want to be on medication, but sometimes it's necessary,
Mhm.
just to get through things. And that is okay to do what you need to do to take care of you. But there are no any more questions. I'm going to drop you down. Thank you so much. I
No
appreciate
problem.
you sharing everything. And then someone said prayers for strength. And I can't wait to unpack with my therapist. It'd be a lot. It really do be a lot to
I,
unpack with.
I,
Listen,
that's why I
when
come like,
it's